What's up, everybody? Hey, welcome back to another episode of the Fulfillment Podcast. I'm your host, Josh, and in the Fulfillment Podcast, we discover better you by finding fulfillment in life's relationships and finance. And in this episode, we're going to talk about what it means to have a sturdy and what it means to have a fragile ego. And I'm telling you, this ain't for the faint of heart because this episode's hot. Like, I love this one. The recording of this was just incredible. Like, you need to send this. If you guys get some stuff out of this, which I almost guarantee you will, if you get something out of this, you gotta send it to your friends, your family, anybody you're having struggles with, like people that will listen and take feedback. You gotta send them this episode because this one dives into everything, especially breaking down the initial barrier of how you're going to become a better you. And you can't do it unless you get over some things and you figure out if you got the fragile or the sturdy ego. And if you got the fragile ego, great, identify it. Don't run from it, face it. Move yourself to the sturdy ego and watch how your life is going to change. It's just incredible. And I'm telling you, you know what? This episode, I used to think the sixth one, I think, was like my favorite up until recording this one. By far, this is what I got to send everybody. Because it's in your face, it's up front, it's bold, it's honest, it's direct. And it's about making a change. Like, if you don't get something out of this thing, it's like either you're in a good place, right? I really hope that's the problem. But if you don't get something out of this, you either stopped it short or you cut it off or something because it was too upfront for you. It hit home. Maybe it struck home so hard that you couldn't listen to it. So I really think that if you guys get through this entire thing, right? It's a little bit long. It's one of the longer ones that I've recorded, but I'm not kidding. This is got to be probably one of the best in terms of making changes in your life. And I hope you get the same thing out of it that I did when I was kind of going through and learning all these lessons myself in my own personal journey. And now that I'm trying to share it with you guys, I hope you get the same thing out of it that I got out of it when I was going through this. So with that being said too, I want to thank you guys. We got everybody listening. Not only are we listening in the United States, but we got our first overseas followers over the past week. I mean, we're getting hit up by people in the UK. It's probably the Queen. I'm sure it's the Queen listening to this. And then Germany too. Like this podcast is just expanding. It's taking off. It's going all over the place. We've broken over 100 listeners this week. Like, it's incredible. And I hope you guys are getting a shit ton out of this because I love making these. And this thing's going to keep going in the same direction. Just keep finding purpose and fulfillment for everybody in their lives. So with that being said, without further ado, let's dive into the episode, guys. Okay, so what is the sturdy and what is the fragile ego? Sturdy versus fragile ego. What in the heck is this guy talking about, right? Well, let me explain. So we're talking about what a sturdy ego is and what a fragile ego is. The whole point of this real topic and discussion is more or less when you get into any business decision or relationship or financial situation or anything like that, right? And you get into any sort of situation where you're fronted with conflict or you have to make a decision or you have to find a way to develop a culture that creates improvement, right? Creates the collective audience, the collective group of who you're dealing with to improve. The difference between the two is going to change pretty much the outcome of what happens with these. And really this is going to play into different leadership styles. I mean, there's a book called Quiet that I read, and it's got, it pretty much talks about the extroverted and the introverted leaders and the way two different people can kind of go about things. And it kind of has to tie in a little bit with this. I'll explain a little bit more of that probably a little bit later on, but regardless, the way you approach something and the way you approach a situation is going to have a lot to do with the type of ego you have. And you can only have one, right? You're either going to have a sturdy ego or you're going to have a fragile ego. And when I say a sturdy ego, I'm not saying like a cocky person. I'm not saying some guy that just thinks he's got all this shit and like really doesn't. I'm not saying like a strong, like cocky kind of dude. Not that, right? So don't get that in your head. When I say a sturdy ego, I mean somebody that's like confident in themselves, right? They're confident in themselves. They don't really seek validation from other people. They're on their own purpose. They're in their own fulfillment. They got their own thing going on. Whereas the reverse of that is what the fragile ego is. And the fragile ego is somebody that's not confident in who they are. They're probably trying to impress somebody else. They're seeking validation from external forces, external people, external relationships. They take a lot of influence from what other people say and tell them. They do a lot of things that aren't for themselves. They do it for others or for other things, right? So they're not on their own purpose. They're not following their own dreams. They're not following their own mission. They're not, in their own fulfillment. They're in someone else's, or they're trying to please someone else's. They haven't found their own purpose, right? When you look at somebody that's got a fragile ego, something's wrong, right? We'll say, maybe they say a word weird, or maybe they do something different, or they do something that's not productive, right? I'm not saying this is something that's necessarily like weird, so it's not like a bullying kind of technique, but it's more of you do something that's inefficient or ineffective, and you try and tell this person, or this person tries to get help and someone tells them, and they sit there and defend themselves. They take it as a personal attack. Whereas somebody with a sturdy ego, or somebody that's confident in themselves and on their mission and on their purpose and on their fulfillment, somebody that's on that mission or on that side of the ego is going to be like, okay, well, thanks, or something like that, right? So it's going to be more of a kind of like bounce off them type situation, rather than somebody that's got a fragile ego. It's going to be like a personal attack. And the reason I want to talk about this one is because I've seen it come up a lot. I've had a couple different people reach out to me and kind of talk with me about it, right? A couple coaching clients want to figure out what it is that they're doing wrong, right? They want a better relationship with their family. They want a better relationship with their spouse. They want a better relationship in the ones dating right now. So not really seeing anybody, but more or less every time they get close to somebody, they seem to like break it off, or the person's not right, or whatever. And we're trying to figure out if it's in their head or if it's actually something that what he's saying is, these girls just kind of aren't right for him, or they're brutal, or they're, not the kind, sweet people that you're looking for. So we're trying to figure out what the root of all this stuff is. And I think taking a look at it, as things break down, we're looking at the difference between a strong and a fragile ego. And when you got a fragile ego, that a lot of times you're not going to find the fulfillment that you need, because you can't deal with somebody telling you something that may be true and you just don't like it. It's a personal attack, right? You're taking it as a personal attack, and you're not going to fix the problems because of that. So really taking a look at all that kind of stuff, how this plays in. I think we're going to break down the fragile ego first. I think it's probably the best way to go. And then we could talk about the sturdy ego and kind of like how the differences play, and then which one obviously you want to get to. So how to change from being a fragile ego to a sturdy ego. So you kind of understand the real ground root basis of what the two are. Hopefully that makes sense. If it doesn't, maybe the rest of this episode will explain the rest of it. But I think that'll make some pretty basic sense, right? One, you take everything as a personal attack and you're trying to seek validation from other people. Sturdy ego is more or less trying to just become the best version of who you can be, and improve and find your fulfillment and grow no matter what, right? You're not going to take everything as personal. You're not really seeking validation from outside forces. You get that from yourself. So you're on your own purpose. You're on your own mission. You don't really care about the influence of other people, more or less just how to improve yourself. So that's the biggest difference between the two. So this episode is going to go through a lot of things that are covered in two different books, really. And I want to make a note of this because I think books and reading and always self-improvement, self-knowledge is huge. But Seven Habits of Highly Effective People by Stephen Covey. He's awesome author. The book in particular is a massive book. However, I think it's like chapter 4 or something. There's one part where he starts talking about different principles and stuff, and one of them is the principles of interpersonal leadership. And he talks about some empathetic communication and what that means. And I think in order to get to that point, because empathetic communication is a huge piece when you get into relationships, and in order to get to the ability to have empathetic communication, you have to get to having a sturdy ego. And you can't do that if you have a fragile ego, because the things you have to do to discuss in an empathetic communication and empathetic understanding is something that you can't do with a fragile ego, because you have to like confront each other in order to improve each other. And that's like providing value for your partner in a relationship. So in order to do that, you have to have a sturdy ego. Actually, there's probably 2 more books, but I'm just looking over at the bookshelf right now. One is Wage War on Yourself, okay, by Mark Summers. Awesome book, really kind of a slap across the face to tell you, hey, you need to listen up and you start paying attention. Because in that book, he talks about the ability to pretty much move yourself from a fragile ego to a sturdy ego. Stop trying to impress other people. Stop trying to, seek the validation from, all these other people. Like, you need to realize what you're doing is wrong, and the way you are seeking like all this external problem solving, right? Because you don't have a gratitude mindset, you're in a victim mindset, so you're trying to get all this external problem solving. It's never you're never the problem. It's always somebody else. That alone is discussed like 800 times in that book. So Declare War on Yourself, awesome book, real slap across the face to get you in the right mindset and the right mode to actually improving and starting the journey between the one ego to the other. And then the third one, where is it at? right there. So the third one is going to be, I think we talked about this in episode 8, if I don't remember correctly, but it's the way of the superior man. And in the way of the superior man, talk about the ability for you to understand that sometimes, right, and it's always it's a lot from the male perspective. It talks about the female, but it kind of it obviously twists into both, right? So just think of it like that, right? Think of it from, one perspective to another. Expand your horizons, be able to do, some things that aren't literally laid out in text in front of you. But understand that sometimes when your girlfriend or your spouse, whoever, is somebody, they're not necessarily they're not pissed at you and they're not mad at you and they're not always just complaining or anything. Sometimes when your girlfriend gets home and she just is going off the rails, right? And you see that, and she starts just kind of venting and pissed and yelling, and maybe not yelling, but hopefully she doesn't yell. Otherwise, maybe that's a really, really bad day. But or you did something to accelerate the process. But regardless, your girlfriend comes home and maybe you're doing something, I'll say cooking or whatever. Maybe that's just me being me, but hopefully you're doing something that's taking care of the home and you're supporting the two of you, and you're doing something to make the equilibrium better and take care of each other in the relationship. But regardless, she comes home, she's pissed, and she just wants to vent, and she's going off on this and this and this and this, and she's just going. Don't take those things as personal attacks, right? If you have a fragile ego, you can't really improve the relationship, because what your girl needs at that time is she needs you to listen, and she needs you to support her, and she needs your undivided attention to be able to help her in her situation and her day, because she's going through some shit and she needs to vent it out, and you need to be able to understand that. Somebody with a fragile ego can't do it. They can't. When somebody starts going off on them and just venting their whole day and unloading this bushel of problems on top of them, they take everything as a personal assault against them, and it turns into an argument, right? It turns into an argument, it turns into a fight, it turns into this mad disagreement. And what your girl needs is your undivided love. That's what she needs at that time. She needs you to be somebody that's the rock and the foundation, somebody that's got a cool head on their shoulders, and somebody that can talk with them and listen to them about all the things that are going on, and help give them that support that they need at that time, right? They're the ultimate, the pure feminine is like an untamed ocean, right? It flows in all directions, ultimately powerful, and can destroy anything but unleashed. Whereas the masculine's kind of like a canal or a river system that controls the water and brings it to where it needs to go next, right? It creates the flow, it creates the guidance in the channel, and it can kind of contain everything for her. Still powerful, still flowing freely, but given that direction and guidance, puts it in the right direction. And that's what the masculine does. So with the woman being the pure feminine, you want that, right? The man with an empty canal, right, with no water in the canal, a canal that's just empty is dry. It's empty. It's got no purpose. There's no purpose for a canal to be there if there's no water flowing through it, right? So embrace that your woman's got that pure feminine energy, and she's bringing that to a relationship, and that's good. Don't take it as the wrong thing. You can be there and you support her and you take her through that, right? It's not a personal attack on you like somebody with the fragile ego is going to think it is. What it is instead is she needs your sturdy, undivided love, and she needs you to be the strong ego at that point. Somebody with a strong ego is going to be somebody that can listen to what she says, understand that she's trying to vent all this stuff out and she's trying to get it off her chest, and she needs somebody to listen and to help her, right? And not necessarily tell her what to do, but to listen to her, really just to listen to her. She needs somebody that can do all that kind of stuff with her without taking it personally, without taking it like you're attacking, or with like she's attacking you and trying to defend yourself and all this other nonsense. Like, embrace her, give her a hug, right? Or the ocean is freeing. Well, embrace her, give her a hug, show her your love, give her a kiss, and just let her go. Just let her continue to go on what she's doing. Maybe you go set her in the bathtub and let her, take a bath to cool down and calm down. You get her a glass of wine, or maybe you pick her up, you take her bags, set them on the ground. You pick her up and you set her on the countertop, get her a glass of wine, and tell her, just keep going. Just tell me about your day, and you just start cooking dinner or something. Like maybe that's kind of the way it goes. But do have the ability to understand that when you're in the sturdy ego, you're confident in yourself. You're not going to take things like that as personal attacks. You're not going to take them as she's threatening who you are and your own personality. And she understands that she needs to get it out and she wants you, right? She's coming to you with all these problems and everything, right? Don't ever take them as personal because she's coming to you. She's coming to you with them. So she wants you to be that person, right? If she wouldn't, she'd go to somebody else. She'd talk to the guys at work. She'd talk to, some of the coworkers. She talks to people at home. She talks on a drive home from work. She'd call on somebody, there's a million other options of people that she could go to and who she could vent to. While she's probably already vented to somebody, probably not at this degree has she vented to you. And she wants you to be the person, to be the rock. She wouldn't be with you if she didn't, right? That's the whole point. We lose this in today's society. We think everybody, everybody needs to be this feminine energy and all this stuff. No, fuck that. Get yourself out of that, especially if you're the male in this situation. Get yourself out of that mindset. No girl wants a guy to be feminine. Like, you can have feminine components, right? You can understand emotions, you can understand feelings, you can love and embrace, you can do all those things, right? Those are feminine-esque qualities, but you ultimately need to bring the masculine energy to the game. Like, that's your job. That's your job as a guy in the situation of a relationship. And in a situation in which your woman's going off, you need to have a sturdy ego, because if you don't and you have a fragile ego, you're not going to be giving her what she needs. You're not going to be providing the canal that open ocean needs in order to guide it and push it in the right direction. And if you're not going to do that for her, then she's going to leave you, right? I mean, I would. If you're a high-quality person, a high-quality girl, I would leave somebody that is a fragile person who has a fragile ego in a relationship because they can't help me grow. They can't help get me to where I need to be. They can't provide me that guidance and that support to get me to become a better version of myself. And that's what a relationship's all about. That's what relationships are about, friendships are about, business relationships are about. All the different things are all about you getting to become a better version of who you are. And if you can't do that, right, if you can't be with somebody or be around people that support you to grow you to that point, there's no point in being in the relationship. Don't be like, oh yeah, well, we got kids and we got all this stuff. We got it, right? You probably didn't start off the best way then. You probably didn't start off both on the same page. You probably didn't start off before all that stuff happened to get you to where you're at. You have to understand this, and this is why I preach so much that if you go through a breakup, stop jumping in from one relationship to another. Stop doing that, because you got to spend time on your own finding your purpose and figuring out what drives you and puts you on your mission before you meet somebody else. Because if you're going to meet somebody else and you're not fully healed before you get in that, you're dragging problems and you're bleeding shit from one relationship to another, to another, to another. And all you're doing is damaging and hurting all those people along the way. Stop. If we would all just stop and then stop trying to go around and sleep with everybody, stop trying to go out and bring our relationship problems to other people that don't deserve to hear them, right? If we would all just stop that nonsense and figure out our own passions and purpose before diving into another relationship, I can tell you right now the divorce rate would be a hell of a lot lower than it is right now. I can tell you for sure there'd be a whole different society shift in the way things are happening right now, because the reason people are the way they are, and this is my honest to God truth, is because nobody knows what the fuck they want to do. They don't know who they are because they never spent the time alone to figure that out. Everybody's got this fragile ego where anything happens is a personal assault and they have to be right. No, God, listen, let me tell you one thing. You ain't ever right. You're never going to be 100% of the time right. There's a million plus people that are going to interact with you on a daily basis, weekly basis, monthly basis, whatever the fuck. And you're not going to be right 100% of the time. I can guarantee you that. Because if you were right 100% of the time, then you're the person that knows everything. Why is everybody not coming to you? Why are you not the billionaire and the richest person in the world? Why are you not the one making all the big wig decisions and making things happen and improving everything around you? It's because you don't know everything. You have to learn stuff, right? Don't have such a fucking head on your shoulders that you think you know everything, because you don't. Stop having a fragile ego, understand other people can help you, and move forward from there, right? I talked about that book, Quiet, right? It talks about the introverted and the extroverted leaders. And I think there's going to be an episode on this later, but I'm going to touch on it real basic anyway. The extroverted leader, right, is somebody that more or less has a fragile ego in the situation, right? There's somebody that when you come to them with a problem or you say something, they're like, no, this is the way it's going to happen. We're going to do it this way. This is how it's going to work. Go, right? Go and do as I say. Whereas the introverted leader is somebody that takes feedback and stuff from the collective, right? So from the collective group, the collective audience, or whoever it is you got, right? The introverted leader's like, hey, here's the problem. This is what we got. This is what I'm thinking. What do you all think? And then people provide their feedback. They provide, whatever, because guess what? Not the one person knows every damn thing. They might have the most experience in the room, which is great. They're probably supposed to, which is why they have the most responsibility, like to make decisions. But they probably don't know everything. And if you can understand that, they're the ones that have the sturdy ego, because they can take criticism from other people. Somebody else can chime in and be like, hey, sir, that's kind of a dumb decision. I think you should do it this way just because you're going to avoid X, Y, and Z, or because it'll do X, Y, and Z, right? And then if somebody can hear that and be like, oh shit, yeah, you're right, I didn't even see that. That's a good point. And then execute on it. Introverted leaders, and I think it talks about this in the book, I may be a little off, but the introverted leaders arrive at the solution like 86% of the time quicker than what an extroverted leader does, because an extroverted leader has a fragile ego and thinks that if anybody's telling them something wrong or is telling them something different than what the guidance is that they put out, that it's a personal attack, that they're coming after them and they're telling like they can't lead or they're not a good leader or whatever the hell that is insulting them so much. They're telling them that they aren't that thing, and that's a personal attack to them, right? They hate it. They fight it. So don't have a fragile ego. We need to move you to a strong ego, okay? Another example, and I'll do this example first, but another example, so let's say, this is something I was thinking about. Let's say, this is like a family thing. It's kind of funny, but I'll share it anyway because I think it's a good example. Let's say you go somewhere, right, and somebody's house is literally just slammed. Just like you open the fridge and there's just you can't fit your hand inside because there's so much just shit everywhere. Like they're saving old bottles of ranch, they're saving like vegetables that they'll probably never use. They're probably gonna go bad before you ever see them again. Just jars of every which thing you can think of. You got jam, you got mustard, you got just right anything, pickles, whatever you got. Right, the fridge is just packed. You can't fit a can of beer in there because it's so damn full. So, if that describes you, don't get pissed off, right? Let's move ourselves to a strong ego here. But, continuing with this example, right? So you go to the situation, you see this fridge packed, can't put a fist inside because the thing's so damn full. Now, you being the owner of that fridge, right? Say you're the owner of the fridge. How are you going to respond to this next piece? Somebody comes over, they open the fridge, they look at it, and they say, holy shit, you ever think about clearing out your fridge? And they look at you, right? And you turn around and look at them. What is the first thing that you would do in response to that? And that's going to tell you if you're in one of these two states or not, right? Somebody with a fragile ego, here's how a response would go. Like, yeah, it's full, but like, Jesus, man, like I keep all sorts of stuff in there, and I you never know when you're going to need this, or I got to have, sometimes this stuff's in there and that, and like whatever. Just like you don't have to go in there. It's my house, right? Or they say something like, hey man, this is my house, not yours. Or maybe it's like a kid of yours or whatever, and it's like, hey, you don't have to live here. This is my house. This is how I like it. This isn't yours. You don't have to deal with that. If you want, you can move out, right? You don't have to be here. Okay, that's a fragile ego kind of response, right? You're defending yourself. You're seeking the validation of someone else because you're like, well, if you don't like it, then you can leave, right? I'm only going to deal with people that like it. You're defending yourself, right? The biggest way to tell is, and when a situation comes up that makes you uncomfortable or kind of like attacks you, you take it as a personal attack and feel like you have to defend yourself in order to keep your ego safe, right? In order to protect your heart, because it's coming after something that's deep and important to you, or maybe not critically, hopefully important like a fridge, but regardless, they're coming after you and it's an attack and you feel like you have to defend yourself. Or here's how a sturdy ego would approach it. Somebody comes over, they open the fridge. Holy shit, dude, this thing is packed. You ever thought about emptying your fridge? Yeah, dude, you're right. That totally is, like, you're not wrong. You're not wrong. That definitely does need to get cleaned out. Can you feel the energy dynamic between the two, right? Can you see how when somebody says something and they're like, well, you never know, and I keep this, and you don't have to be here, you can leave, and like, you're like, oh, Jesus Christ, like, fuck, man, I'm just trying to help, like, your fridge is a fucking mess. Or you get to the other person that has a sturdy ego, and you're like, hey, man, this thing's a mess. You're like, yeah, no, you're not right. I definitely need to clean that thing out. There's just like a massive energy shift between the two ways of communicating that, right? And somebody that's got a sturdy ego isn't getting offended by it. They're like, nah, you're right. Right? You're like that. You're not wrong, dude. Like, that does need to get cleaned out. This shit's a mess. Especially if I'm gonna have a girl over later, or my wife's, or what, whatever it is. You're like, yeah, that's definitely something that probably needs to get cleared out. Like, those are huge. Those are huge things. And the cool thing is the person with the sturdy ego is probably gonna be the person who improved the most throughout those two situations, right? Somebody says you got a dirty thing, and you're like, yeah, you're right. And then you clean it out. Guess what? Now you got a clean fridge. That's awesome. Whereas somebody with a fragile ego is like, no, defend. And then before you know it, the fridge just gets filled with more stuff. Or, I don't know how you would fill a fridge with no room with more stuff, but somehow it happens, right? They would figure it out because they can't take criticism. So think about that situation, right? That's just a beautiful example. I think it's a very simple example. Now, another way, and this is getting more into the deeper side of things in the relationship, but a lot of times you'll have people that haven't gone through the self-development piece of life, right? They haven't figured out who they are, what their purpose is, what their mission is, and what their drive is in life, and where it's going for them. And that gives them like a lack of security, really, right? They feel like a lack of purpose. They feel a lack of involvement or ability to provide or bring anything to the table, and that's important, right? And if you don't have that, the reason that kind of puts you more in the fragile ego side of life is because anybody that acknowledges that or points that out or gives you some sort of advice to improve it, you can't listen to them with a clear mind. You can't, because you yourself aren't confident with yourself, so everything against you is pretty much going to tell you something that's up or something that's wrong. And something cool about when we look at the 7 habits of highly effective people, when he talks in that chapter about the empathetic communication, the reason it's so important to have a sturdy ego when you get into that empathetic communication is because really what empathetic communication is, it boils down to you seek first to understand, then to be understood. So you're not trying to defend yourself or even get it to the point where you're the one being listened to. You're trying to instead listen to the person in which you're in the relationship with, right? I'm talking really strictly on a relationship here. You can tie this into however you want, but I'm talking in an intimate like relationship. A way to build intimacy in a relationship is to be able to understand each other and provide value for each other in the relationship. And if you have a fragile ego, you can't do that because you're not focused on helping to improve the other person, whatever the cost, right? Even if it's improvement that you need to make. Instead, you're working on defending yourself and being comfortable and being happy in the relationship just yourself. You're not focused on helping the other person. You're not focused on putting them and their needs first, right? You're focused on yourself. Your cup is not empty. You need to fill your cup, right, in the relationship. Whereas if you come to the relationship with your cup full and you are full of gratitude and love on your own without them really even being there, but now you're adding them to the situation and it's just become that much more beautiful, but you add them to it, now you can have a sturdy ego in the relationship, which means you can take criticism, which means you can put them first because you're not so worried about protecting yourself. You're worried about more or less how can I improve their life and make things better for them. And hopefully if their cup is full and you've both found somebody that's your equal and you're both on the same page, then they can do the same thing for you. You're not just working on filling their cup and they're not just trying to fill their cup. You're both overflowing with this love that you can give to each other and you're improving the relationship together, right? So having a sturdy ego, when somebody comes into this and you have the empathetic communication, you want to understand because you're less concerned about yourself. You're less concerned about if you're being understood. You're less concerned about if your point is being made. You're less concerned about the things that drive from your side of the situation. You can sit back and you can pretty much be like, okay, I want to listen. I want to listen and I want to understand because the whole point here is to understand you before I myself am being understood. That's what's going to make this whole thing beautiful. And you can do that. And in order to do that, you have to have the sturdy ego. Does that all kind of make sense? I mean, you got to be able to take the criticism and allow the other person to be put first without yourself being the kind of like center of attention. And if you can do that, you're putting yourself in the sturdy ego. You're figuring it out. If you can sit in a relationship, talk to somebody who's having a rough time, and not worry about yourself or how your day is or all that stuff, like naturally that will happen, right? If it's a good relationship and they're in their good spot in the world and stuff, and they're on their own passion and their own purpose, they're going to want to know about your day, right? They're going to ask the questions. Don't think that I'm telling you in a relationship, it's got to be only one-sided, right? You have to always be pushing for the other person, because that's not the case at all, right? It should 100% go both ways. A good relationship will do that. But I'm saying from one perspective, if your cup is full, you're not concerned about yourself. You're trusting your own ego. You're sturdy. You're on your purpose. You're on your passion. You're finding your fulfillment. And you don't worry about what the other person understands of you. You're just trying to understand them, right? It's the biggest way to make emotional deposits in a relationship. A relationship's kind of like a bank, right? You make emotional deposits, and then when you need them, right, you make emotional withdrawals. And depositing into that account is always the most critical thing. You gotta always be giving to your partner and being able to help and grow the relationship and grow kind of like the passion that the two of you have together. And I tell you one thing too. When you get to the point in a relationship where you're both, right, so hopefully you both find each other as your cup is full, but regardless, we'll kind of skip that piece. But if you both have a sturdy ego and you're able to talk to each other and really talk about the issues that frustrate you, it becomes just probably the most beautiful and like clean, pure, genuine love that you've ever experienced. I mean, I'm talking not just the communication side of things, but I'm talking about like the intimate side of communication, where I'm telling you, like, your partner is willing to break it down in front of you and just be embraced by you. And you don't hold that over their head. You don't make fun of them for that. You just embrace them, and you two are a team, and you're going to get through this together, and you guys are going to work on it together. When you have that kind of intimate relationship, because you're able to take criticism and you're able to listen to them, just go off the hinges, and you're able to help control that free-flowing ocean that is powerful in all directions, and give it that purpose and that guidance, and give it the embrace and the love that it needs, I'm telling you, man, everything changes in the relationship. It becomes the most pure, awesome thing that you could ever be a part of. It is incredible how things can change from being somebody with a fragile ego to somebody with a strong ego. It's just unreal. And not only does that translate from the communication side, but that communication will flow 100% into the physical intimacy of a relationship. Like, you two will be just so comfortable and so open and so real with each other that you don't, there's no walls, right? It's all trusting. It's all loving. You guys are together in this, and that translation into the physical intimacy is just unreal. It's incredible. So I really will challenge you. Transition yourself from the fragile ego to the sturdy ego. The best way to do that, right? Now you're like, wow, this is great. Okay, I 100% understand. Now I may know that I'm a fragile ego kind of person. How the heck am I going to shift from fragile ego to a sturdy ego, right? I want that. I want those things now that you're talking about. I want to be genuinely happy in my relationship. I want to go home and look forward to seeing my spouse. I want to go see people that I haven't talked to in forever because I'm confident with myself, and I used to be avoiding them because I had a fragile ego, and we both had a fragile ego, and neither one of us could take criticism. Like, you want relationships and you want to be happy, like genuine. I'm talking genuinely happy, where in your heart you're happy, and it's not just like some fake facade that you're putting on, but genuinely happy in life. I want to be there now, right? And you're like, Josh, that's sweet. How do I get there? So let's look at it, right? Let's look at what the fragile ego does in this, and how to shift from the fragile ego to the sturdy ego. The biggest problem in the fragile ego world is that everything you hear, you feel like you have to defend yourself, right? Somebody could tell you, like, listen, every time somebody says something to you, you take it personally. And how does that make you feel? And you're like, well, it's not my fault. And, it's just, maybe they just don't love me. Or, if I just remove myself from this and just, was never around you, would that make things better? And just like go on this rant. If you do that, right? Like, hey, take a step back and look at what you're doing, right? Are you defending yourself? That is a defense of yourself. Whereas instead, if somebody, because what's the opposite of that, right? The opposite of that is not what you're doing, which is if somebody came to you and said those same things, like, you take everything so personal, whatever, and you're like, man, I know you're right, and I really think that is something that I got to work on. Like, I really do. I really, really do. Maybe every time I do something like that, or I start to fall into that trap or that mindset again, can you just be like, hey, Josh, listen, you're doing it again. Like, you're defending yourself. Ah, shit, you're right. Okay, all right, you're right. Maybe I can listen to it, right? Because it's all about listening to the information that's being given to you and hearing it, right? If you're in a relationship and somebody's telling you, hey, can you take care of the dishes for me? Like I hate coming home and seeing just like the dishes piling up in the sink. Fragile ego. Well, I've been out all day and I've been doing this and I haven't had the time and it's not my job and you did it last, or I did it last time, and you should be taking, like, fragile ego, right? You're defending yourself. You're trying to make a point and defend yourself because you feel attacked, right? Your heart feels attacked. You feel like you're being impacted at kind of like the deepest level of yourself. Somebody's attacking you and saying like, hey, you're not doing something that makes me happy, right? Like, you're not doing what I need you to be doing, and you're trying to defend yourself because you're like, I don't want to be hurt. My heart is being hurt and my emotions are being hurt and I'm being attacked and I don't want that. So I'm trying to protect myself and tell myself, right? It's self-convincing. That's what you're trying to do. You're trying to convince yourself that what they're telling you isn't true. You're trying to convince yourself of the source in which you seek validation from isn't giving you the validation that you need, but it's okay because you have that in yourself. But if you're doing that, you don't. If you're trying to convince yourself that you're okay because of some external validation not being met, then you're not. You're not okay. Because if you were okay, then you wouldn't need to convince yourself, right? It would already be there. You wouldn't have to convince yourself if you were already confident in who you are. You would just know it. It wouldn't even be a question in your head. You would already be there. You would already have that. So start taking yourself away. When you catch yourself trying to defend yourself, stop. Stop trying to defend yourself and just listen. Listen to the feedback that's being given. That's how you improve, right? That's how you improve. You improve from experience. That's how you get better at anything. You improve from experience. You make a bad decision, you get experienced on making the bad decision, you make a right decision, right? That's how you do anything. If somebody's giving you feedback, you're learning either from their experiences or you're learning from external analysis of your experience, and then you're getting the improvement to be able to change and to do better. Stop looking at it as a personal attack. Look at the people trying to help you, right? Hey man, you fucking run weird. Like, what are you doing? Why are your hands like straight out 90 degrees from your side? You look like you're trying to fly a plane. Yeah, I mean, like, this is what. No, stop. Like, okay, what should I like? What do you think? Is it wrong? Yeah, man, you should probably run with your hands like near your side, or like pumping in a general effort to maintain momentum and to keep your inertia moving forward. Oh, okay. Well, I'm going to take your input and I'm going to take your experience from all the running you've done, or the external viewing of my running that you've done, and I'm going to improve my running. Hey, look at that. Now I can run not looking like an airplane. I look like a 4-year-old on a soccer field after I just scored a goal for the first time in my life, right? You look like you run maybe once or twice a week. It's crazy. Like, you are better now. You have improved, right? You've gotten better. You've listened to somebody else because you've gotten over your own fragile ego. You've gotten past yourself. You've listened to external feedback. You've implemented it, and now you're better because of it. And even in finance, right? Hey man, that was a dumb investment. Like, probably shouldn't have done that, or shouldn't have not, withdrawn all the 100% of everything you had saved up to put it on this doggy daycare that turns out you don't even like dogs. Yeah, that was kind of dumb, dude. Yeah, you're right. Probably shouldn't have done that. Well, let's fix that. Now what do you know? Now next time you're not going to buy $1 million doggy daycare that you don't like dogs with, and not put any dogs inside. Instead, fill it with snakes and not find anybody coming over there to adopt your snakes, because now you're going to invest it in something like real estate that you're actually passionate about, and you follow somebody that has some knowledge on it, and before you know it, you have 2 or 3 rental properties with income flowing in. You can quit your 9 to 5, and now you're on the course to becoming a millionaire because you learn how to dominate passive income and rental markets and real estate, and now you're just completely versed. You found your new passion, and you're becoming lucrative in it, right? Like, holy shit. What in the hell? Why would I not do this in the first place? Well, yeah, exactly. You're going to have to go through some pain, right? You have to go through some pain of listening to some people give you some feedback you probably don't like to hear. But in the end, it's going to make you a better person. Same thing within a relationship. When you're in a relationship and somebody is coming to you with problems that they have, don't take them as attacks. Learn how to get through them together. Listen to the person before you yourself trying to be understood. Have that empathetic communication with your partner so that you both can improve and you provide value for each other in the relationship so you can build a strong and sturdy relationship together. Stop defending yourself. You don't need it. Stop. Like, if you got a sturdy ego, you're not defending yourself because you already know the answers, right? You don't have to convince yourself of it. You already know it. So stop defending yourself. It doesn't do anything for you except prolong a process that you need to fix regardless. Get yourself into the headspace of, people are trying to help me. I want to listen because I want to become better, right? I don't want to run around like an airplane, like a 4-year-old scored a soccer goal for the first time in their life the rest of my life. I want to actually run better. I want to run to the point where I can get some exercise out of it, not look like a bat out of hell. So think about these things and look at the way you approach the situations, and if you can stop defending yourself in the situations in which you feel personally attacked, and if you can grow. And that's really, ultimately, you can master that. Come back to me and let me know, because if you need more help after that, I think you've got it, right? You've got the tools and the techniques. Stop defending yourself. Understand, find your purpose. Stop defending yourself, first of all. Find your purpose. Get yourself on your mission. Understand what fulfills you and what that is, and pursue it, right? Pursue it violently. Listen to the Law of Attraction miniseries and go through that. I'm telling you how to find it, and I'm telling you how to do it, literally spelled out word for word. Go through it, listen to that miniseries if you need to figure out how to find your passion and your purpose, right? It's episodes, I think, like 4 through 6. Like, go back and listen to those. And find what drives you. Stay on your purpose, stay on your mission. That's going to fill you, that's going to fill your cup, that's going to put you on track. And either if you're in a relationship, do it while you're in the relationship and go through it as you need to, right? And your partner should be there to support you. And if you're not in a relationship, don't get in one until you've done this, because that'd be fucking stupid, okay? I'm telling you right now, absolutely stupid. I've done it twice, and it's the dumbest thing in the world, because all you end up doing is hurting people. Hopefully you learn some lessons through it. But all you end up doing is hurting people, or you miss opportunities with people that could be the perfect person. You miss those opportunities because you yourself wasn't healed and wasn't perfect and wasn't where you, not perfect maybe, but you weren't healed and you weren't in the strong ego and you weren't providing to the relationship the value you need to the other person in order to help them grow like they are helping you grow, so you can both grow together and become happy together. Instead, you're absorbing everything that they're giving to you and you're not giving anything back that they need. So don't get into a relationship until you've taken care of yourself, found your purpose, found your mission, and you're on your fulfillment, and you've shifted yourself from a fragile ego to a strong ego. You're not the victim anymore. You're grateful for everything that's happening, and you can put it to work and be better. You can improve. You can figure that out. You're going to be a fucking amazing person. You're going to be drastically different. So, I think that wraps up this episode. A little lengthy, but hey, whatever. I think that's some good stuff. I love it. Give me some feedback. Like I said, fulfillment_lifestyle is the IG handle. Send me some stuff there if you want to talk about it. If you want to hear us a little bit more. Hey guys, one thing too I wanted to talk about. Hell yeah, you guys have crushed it. We got over 100 listeners listening to this thing. Today is amazing. We finally crossed that mark. I'm super pumped. I'm glad a bunch of people are getting some feedback or getting a bunch out of this. Hopefully you guys enjoy listening to it as much as I enjoy making it. We've expanded to, I'm telling you now, we're on Podbean, we're on Spotify, we're on Apple iTunes, we're on Google Plus podcasts, we're on, like everything under the sun. iHeartRadio, like we got everything under the sun. If you need to listen to us or you want to help somebody else find us and listen to some of this content because you think it's valuable and it's changed your life, get somebody else, pull them in, share them on whatever you can. It's the Fulfillment Podcast. You're going to get all sorts of great stuff on it. If you've been listening to me from the beginning, thank you so much. You guys are one of the 100 listeners that have been dedicated to this and following since the beginning. I absolutely love it. Going to continue to go. We're going to continue pushing in the right direction. Hopefully we're finding kind of like a groove and you guys like the direction this is going. I like it, so it's going to happen and this is the direction it's going to go. But hopefully you enjoy that too, because I think you got to be blunt and honest and got to tell some people what's up in order to actually make some improvements. So with that being said, thanks for listening, guys. Next episode is going to be another hot one, so look forward to talking to you then. Remember, every Tuesday and Thursday, new episodes coming out. We'll talk to you then.